Well, here, given the politicization of Prog Andy and his continued bashing of all kinds of leftists, let me be clear about a few things. In England, there are very few radical leftists, defined that by those that Quietula, sorry. Uh, those that are willing to enter the parliament and play the political game that's expected from any party. And even less, we have the extreme left, which advocates um, for the overthrow of the parliamentary institutions because they believe that these are a mockery of democracy and that individuals do not get represented by voting one every X years for members of an establishment that are actually accountable to the wealthy owners of the country, who are those that really shape policy. So, in Britain, for various reasons that I could get into another video, these left, both the one that would be in the parliament, let's say Corbyn, is very small. And the extreme left even less. And that has been for a long time. So if there is any threat of violence, it has to come from the radical or extreme right. Just because there isn't that left. In the 60s, it was different in Europe. There were extreme left that were very active and had the illusion that if they engage in violent actions, the masses would follow them, which didn't happen. But they were very active, especially Germany, Italy, Spain, where they had a very good reason because they were under extremely repressive um, dictatorship that was fascist. And let's not forget that Franco is the person that killed the most persons in his own country among the famous fascists. And that second to Cambodia is the country that has more unearthed graves still coming from the period of the repression. Basically, my family was touched with that. Basically, everybody who was pro-democracy was killed. You could be a pro-democrat, even conservative, and you would be killed like an anarchist or a communist or a socialist. So that explains the extreme number of deaths. But let's go back to the UK. In the case of Andy, he uses a term coined by the US conservative, which would be cultural Marxism. If it were true, somebody like Bourdieu, the French sociologist, could be called cultural Marxism because he places a lot of emphasis on the link between class and culture. France is a great case of that, where class reputation or uh, mm, perception is shaped by networks of elite in culture, literature, art, um, cultural elements that are not so important in the US, where cash is what matters most, and also a certain type of behavior that is considered moral. But in a place like France or even in parts of Italy, Spain, Catalonia, where I am, class is very much linked to culture. So an upper middle class person who's totally ignorant, in some sense, is losing part of his or her class if she doesn't know about art. Uh, Unfortunately, jazz became a marker of upper middle class in the 80s, while the culture of jazz in the 60s and 70s was, if you want, more democratic, where blues and jazz were going always hand in hand. In the 80s, there was a separation, and it was not only in Spain, where jazz became s- a kind of art of the upper middle classes that were more sophisticated, and they made a big difference between jazz and blues, which is absurd because both have been influenced in each other. Many great jazz musicians, uh, even some of those that rejected the label jazz, um, tested musicians by making them play blues and a ballad. And I think at some level that is what defines a jazz musician. If they cannot play well a blues or a ballad, they don't have it where it takes, because that's the basis. So one, for example, is mm, the bass player, what is his name? Darryl Jones of Rolling Stones fame. He played and was discovered by Miles Davis because he reminded him of Jimmy Blanton, of the legendary bass that played with Duke Ellington. If I could be at fault here, right? So don't take it as it's a speculation, or I could fail on that. But basically, what he asked him, he is play a blues. And then he told him, play it slower, play it slow, play it still slower. And until he played very slow blues perfectly, then he hired Darren Jones, who we know is one of the most creative and reliable bassists in the scene since then. Can play a variety of styles of jazz and rock and so on. So Unfortunately, just became something very elitist. But here, what I would like to criticize is the notion of cultural Marxism that Andy is using, which is similar to the world Trumpian world is using as a way of associating a lot of people who have opposite views to Marxism. It reminds me of the period in Spain where everything that was not um, everything that was critical of the dictatorship was read, and that was supposed to be very qualitatively um, um, negative, and that should be exterminated. So uh, the idea that Marxism is very common in the US is also absurd because these theories are not taught in economics departments, which is the only tradition that has evolved over time with a lot of different schools, contradictions among them. Um, uh, some are social democratic, so they accept capitalism with reform, but they still retain Marxian ideas without being Keynesian. Others are anarchist Marxist, others are more um, uh, linked to Marx, others are in contradiction. For example, the postmodern Marxism would have turned Marx to his grave. It's really very different in essential issues. So there is no such a thing as Marxism today as a big unified form of knowledge. It's more several schools in disciplines that develop some aspects of the tradition, but not an ideology that covers basically all kinds of knowledge or a philosophy as well, right? It's something very different from what the politicians are using. They're using it because they had achieved to uh, give a bad name to Marx himself, who was more of a critic of capitalism using the science that he had uh, in his time rather than a proponent of a new society, uh, which he didn't write about that. So um, uh, there are many forms of neo-Marxism that use standard approaches of let's say, the other schools of political science, psychology, economics that are empirical, uh, and that are sometimes not that different in the essential scientific endeavor from uh, opposing theories or different or competing theories, right? So identity politics has nothing to do with the tradition of the left, uh, as Andy would make us believe. Anarchism or socialism or social democracy as ideologies, or Marxism as academic type of knowledge. I'm sorry, of body of knowledge that's partially applied in different disciplines. Um, so that's a big mistake, and that gives a bad name to the left, because identity politics divide society, doesn't address the problem as a social problem, but as an individual issue. Uh, and uh, reduces its impact. And this strategy of the right, the cultural Marxism, associating it with identity politics, contributes to the rejection of, say, social democratic, socialist ideas that previously were associated through academia to Marxism, and somehow were popular in the middle of the past century. So another error that I saw in the critique of the left, the so-called Marxists in the UK, is bringing intersectionality into the same bag of the so-called cultural Marxism and identity politics. This is totally flawed. Intersectionality came from Black feminists of working class origin as a critique of middle class white women feminism. And it has made a big positive, it has brought a lot of positive consequences in the empirical sciences that deal with racism or gender or class separately, by forcing them to understand how they interact, how they include mechanisms that bring them together as a problem that, for example, in my field, produces ill health. originally came from the field of law, and there was no legal framework to conjointly deal with harm done to Black women. Only could be women or Black, but not both. And clearly, through our my own empirical studies and many others, when you add the form of, say, uh, mm, capital, labor domination or exploitation to racism between in the places where I've been is whites against uh, blacks or people of color or indigenous or persons who are not heterosexual. So the effect on health is worse. So there is either an additive effect or a multiplicative effect. It depends on the group or even in that you study, the occupation, the workers, and of course, the class is contained in the relationship between capital and labor, right? So these three forms of relation that create inequality, economic, in political power and representation, and in access to culture, um, uh, need to be analyzed simultaneously to see the added effect on the populations that have the characteristics of the oppressed populations, right? So, in that sense, intersectionality uh, is valuable. It's objective. It's not a social construct. It's not an imagination. Is not postmodern and is not definitely identity politics or the so-called cultural Marxism that is neither cultural nor Marxist. So this needs to be clarified. And if one wants to read about intersectionality, there is the Combahee River Collective, already in 1977. Then the works of Kimberly Crenshaw and Patricia Collins. These are the major theoreticians about this topic. But it has been used in sciences that are empirical, in the social sciences as well in the social sciences and health. And well, you can believe me because well, the university where I am has been ranked the fifth in the world in terms of the study of social sciences and public health. So I'm not trying to um, ideologize my um, speech, just inform and bring clarity or an alternative set of definitions to the rant by Andy. Of course, Andy is, I believe, many times has a good intuition with many problems. And I wouldn't agree more than what he said in one of his last videos that he loved the old labor. That wasn't clear a few months ago, and I made that point several times. That what he was criticizing, POSH, etc., was not the left. That was new labor, and that again, I want to repeat a sentence that reveals what new labor is, which is what Margaret Thatcher was asked, what is what you're more proud of having achieved in your political career? And she said, Tony Blair. I mean, you cannot say it more clearly. She destroyed labor, and labor became a conservative neoliberal uh, party, responsible as well from the privatizations, from the cuts to services, the semi-privatization of the NHS, which was the 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 how I say the crown, the jewel of the crown, seems utterly the best government in the history of the UK, in my opinion, with Lasky behind, etc. So this is all for the moment. Just a few ideas that I hope that you can contrast with those of Andy and search in the literature about intersectionality and whether you believe that it's should be brought in the same basket as identity politics, postmodernism, or if you think that the whole package of these subjectivist, postmodern identity politics fashion on the so-called left, that's the POSH left that Andy likes to criticize, can be understood as cultural Marxism. To me, it's neither. It's neither culture or Marxism. Well, yes, culture, it is culture because it's a kind of ideology, but definitely has nothing to do with Marx, either in the positive elements of the critique of capitalism or those that one may not agree, but really it has nothing to do with that tradition. Thank you. And you decide as usual.